You've been lied to about bodybuilding history, not by malice, by oversimplification. Everyone knows Arnold. Everyone's heard of Ronnie Coleman. But ask someone who ruled the 1940s and you'll get blank stares. Ask about the 1960s and they'll guess wrong. The truth is, bodybuilding's greatest champions have been forgotten, dismissed, or buried under decades of hype about whoever's trending now. That ends today. The history of bodybuilding isn't just about who won the most trophies. It's about who changed the game, who made an entire generation look at the human body differently, who set a standard so high that everyone after them had to evolve just to compete. From war-era gyms where men lifted to forget the world burning outside, to million-dollar stages where genetics and pharmaceuticals collided, each decade produced one champion who didn't just dominate. He redefined what domination meant. You're about to see the real Mount Rushmore of muscle. 8 decades, 8 legends, no debates, no popularity contest, just a cold, hard truth about who owned each era and why. These men didn't ask for permission. They took their place in history by force, by will, by showing up when everyone said it couldn't be done and doing it anyway. You'll finally see who truly defined each era of physique history, from the undefeated lion of the 1940s to the three-dimensional masterpiece of the 2010s. But here's the question that won't be answered until the very end. Which decade produced the most complete bodybuilder to ever step on stage? Not the biggest, not the most famous, the most complete. The answer might surprise you. It might even make you angry. But by the time we reach the final decade, you'll understand why bodybuilding's evolution wasn't just about adding more muscle. It was about perfecting the human form itself. Let's start where it all began. In gyms that smell like sweat and steel, where men lifted not for Instagram likes, but because the iron was the only thing that made sense. 1940s, the undefeated lion. The 1940s belonged to a man who never learned how to lose. John Grimek stood in gyms where wooden platforms creaked under cast iron globe barbells, where chalk dust hung in the air like smoke. His chest looked like it was carved from Pennsylvania oak. His arms hung thick from Olympic weightlifting. But here's what separated him from every strong man before. Grimek could pose. He understood lines and presentation. In 1940, Grimek won Mr. America, the very first one. Then he won it again in 1941. Back-to-back victories when the competition was raw and hungry. In 1948, at age 38, he entered Mr. Universe and beat a room full of younger competitors. The following year, at Mr. USA, a young kid named Steve Reeves thought he had a chance. Grimek won again. Then he retired undefeated. Not because injuries forced him out, because there was nobody left to fight. His training was brutal by necessity. The 1940s meant war. Ration food, heavy manual labor, no supplements, just meat when you could afford it, and iron that didn't care about your excuses. Grimek's workouts combined Olympic lifts with bodybuilding movements. Clean and press, squats, deadlifts, 3-hour sessions. His physique wasn't cut like later decades. He carried more body fat because staying shredded year-round wasn't the standard yet, but his muscle density was shocking. Grimek also competed in the 1936 Berlin Olympics as a weightlifter for Team USA. That Olympic experience taught him something crucial. Presentation matters. The best lifter isn't always the one who wins. The one who looks best while lifting wins. He brought that philosophy back to bodybuilding. When he posed, he didn't just flex. He told a story. Power, control, dominance. The war shaped everything about his era. Many bodybuilders enlisted. Gyms closed. Equipment became scarce. But Grimek kept training. Worked in a steel mill. Lifted after shifts. When the war ended and competitions resumed, Grimek was still standing. Still unbeatable. Why is John Grimek the best bodybuilder of the 1940s? Because he invented the template. Before him, strongmen were just strongmen. After him, you had to be strong and aesthetic. He retired undefeated because he set a standard nobody in his era could touch. He was the father of modern American bodybuilding. the first complete champion who proved muscle could be both powerful and beautiful. 1950s, the statue comes alive. The answer to Grimek's dominance arrived in a spotlight. Steve Reeves didn't just win bodybuilding contests. He made the entire world want to look like him. In 1950, the Mr. Universe stage in London fell into darkness. Then a single spotlight ignited. A man who looked like Michelangelo's David walked forward. Perfect V-taper. Shoulders wide as a doorframe. Waist so tight it looked architectural. The audience didn't just applaud. They gasped. Reeves won that night and immediately retired from competition. Not because he couldn't win again, because Hollywood was calling. What he did next changed bodybuilding forever. He became Hercules. On movie screens across the world. Suddenly, kids in Italy watched a man throw stone pillars across ancient temples. Teenagers in France saw muscles they didn't know existed. That was Steve Reeves. That was what muscle could look like when genetics, training, and proportion aligned perfectly. Before Reeves, bodybuilding was a niche American sport. After Reeves, it was global. Gym owners from Rome to Rio put his poster on their walls. Young men bought their first dumbbells because they wanted his chest. He was 6 feet 1 inch, about 215 pounds in contest shape. Not massive by modern standards, but perfectly proportioned. His measurements were legendary: 18-inch arms, 29-inch waist, 50-inch chest. Every muscle flowed into the next. His training philosophy was deceptively simple: 3 full body workouts per week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 to 12 reps per set. But those sessions lasted 2 to 4 hours. Reeves didn't rush. He focused on perfect form, slow negatives, full range of motion. He trained like a sculptor shaping marble. Slow, precise, permanent, between sets. He'd visualize the muscle growing. No pre-workout stimulants. No intra-workout carbs. Just water and willpower. His diet was clean by necessity. Steak when he could afford it. Chicken, fish, eggs by the dozen, milk by the gallon. Simple foods. No calorie counting. He ate when hungry, stopped when full. He also believed in balance. He didn't obsess. He trained hard, then lived his life. That balance showed in his physique. Reeves looked healthy, not depleted, not overtrained. He looked like the idealized version of a human being. The Sword and Sandal films made Reeves a global icon. Hercules, 1958. Hercules Unchained, 1959. He starred in over a dozen films. Each one showed millions that building muscle wasn't just for circus strongmen. It was aspirational. It was beautiful. Reeves had already won Mr. America in 1947 at age 21. Then Mr. World in 1948. By the time he took Mr. Universe in 1950, he'd conquered every major title in 3 years. His competitive career was a meteor. Bright, fast, then gone. Why is Steve Reeves the best bodybuilder of the 1950s? Because he didn't just dominate contests. He exported bodybuilding to the entire planet. He proved muscle could be mainstream. He showed that symmetry mattered more than sheer size. He trained smart, not stupid. And when he walked away, he left a blueprint. Build a body like art, president like performance, and never let the sport consume your humanity. 1960s, the myth walks in. Then the sport saw something it still doesn't fully understand. Sergio Oliva defected from Cuba in the early 1960s, carrying nothing but the body he'd built. He was a weightlifter for the Cuban national team. The team traveled to Jamaica for the Pan American Games. Oliva walked away from the hotel, away from the handlers, away from Castro's Cuba. He had no money, no English, no plan. He ended up in Chicago, worked in a factory, lifted at the local YMCA. That's where the myth began. Oliva would walk into the YMCA after a 10-hour shift. Then he'd load up a barbell for rows. His back would spread. Members would stop mid-rep, literally freeze and stare. His lats looked like they belonged on a comic book character. Too wide, too thick, too separated. His arms measured over 20 inches cold. But here's what made people question reality. Oliva's waist measured 28 inches. At 5 feet 11 inches and 240 pounds, the proportions defied human structure. In 1967, Oliva entered his first Mr. Olympia. He won. Not even close. In 1968, something happened that never occurred before or since. Oliva showed up for the Olympia, went backstage, started warming up. Other competitors saw him, saw his back, and withdrew. The entire field forfeited. The Mr. Olympia became a one-man show. Officials handed Sergio the trophy, without a single competitor sharing the stage. In 1969, a young Austrian named Arnold Schwarzenegger thought he was ready. Arnold had won Mr. Universe multiple times. He was confident, charismatic, hungry. Oliva won, decisively. It was Arnold's only Mr. Olympia loss ever. Arnold later admitted Oliva's physique looked impossible, like someone had drawn muscles where muscles shouldn't exist. Oliva's training was unorthodox because everything worked for him. Lightweight built him. Heavyweight built him. His genetics were so absurd that normal rules didn't apply. He'd train at Duncan YMCA in Chicago for hours. Full body splits, chest and back supersets, arms until his sleeves couldn't contain the pump. He also worked as a Chicago police officer while dominating bodybuilding. Imagine getting pulled over and Sergio Oliva steps out of the squad car. People called him the Myth because his physique looked fake. Photos looked airbrushed even though airbrushing wasn't common yet. His proportions seemed impossible. He won 3 straight Olympias from 1967 to 1969. Then Arnold showed up bigger and more refined in 1970. But Sergio kept competing through the 1970s, kept placing high, proving that even past his prime, he was better than most champions in their prime. Why is Sergio Oliva the best bodybuilder of the 1960s? Because he turned bodybuilding into myth-making. He dominated so thoroughly that competitors forfeited rather than face him. He brought a Cuban refugee's hunger and combined it with DNA that rewrote the rulebook. He made freak sound like the highest compliment. The 1960s belonged to the myth because nobody before or since has looked quite as impossible. 1970s, the man who made it famous. But genetics alone don't build empires. Charisma does. Arnold Schwarzenegger walked into the 1970s like he'd already won the decade before it started. He beat Sergio Oliva in 1970, ending the myth's reign. Then Arnold won 1971, 1972, 1973, 1974, and 1975. 6 straight years. He retired in 1975 as the undisputed king. Then in 1980, he shocked the world. Came back, took his 7th Olympia. 7 titles total. Yet the trophies aren't what made Arnold the face of the 1970s. It was how he won. Arnold understood something most bodybuilders missed. This wasn't just a sport, it was entertainment. He talked trash but made it funny. He psyched out competitors with a smile. At Gold's Gym in Venice Beach, Arnold controlled the room without trying. When he trained, people watched. When he joked between sets, everyone laughed. His physique was a prototype of mass with aesthetics. Arnold stood around 6 feet 2 inches, weighed 235 to 240 pounds in contest shape. His arms measured 22 inches. His chest was 57 inches. His biceps peak became iconic, that ball of muscle sitting high on his arm. His chest was thick and wide. His back had width and detail. He wasn't the most ripped by modern standards, but he was a total package of mass, shape, and presentation. Arnold's training was high-volume brutality. He'd train twice a day sometimes, 6 days a week, 20 to 30 sets per body part, supersets, giant sets, drop sets. He believed in shocking the muscle, never letting it adapt. He'd train with Franco Columbu, and they'd push each other into complete muscular failure, then 2 more reps. But Arnold's real genius was outside the gym. In 1977, pumping iron hit theaters. It should have been a niche film for gym rats. Instead, it became a cultural phenomenon. Mainstream America watched bodybuilders train, pose, and live. They saw Arnold's personality, his humor, his drive. Suddenly, gyms across America filled with new members. Young men wanted Arnold's arms. Arnold turned bodybuilding from a weird subculture into something aspirational. Arnold also understood competition psychology. He'd compliment competitors with backhanded praise. He'd show up relaxed while others stressed. He'd party the night before competitions. Mental warfare. And it worked. Competitors would stand next to him on stage and feel smaller even when they weren't. Why is Arnold Schwarzenegger the best bodybuilder of the 1970s? Because he didn't just dominate the sport, he transformed it. He made bodybuilding global. He proved muscle could be mainstream. He combined size, symmetry, and showmanship into a package nobody has matched since. He won 7 Olympias across 2 decades. He starred in Pumping Iron and changed how the world saw bodybuilders. The 1970s belonged to Arnold because he was the first complete superstar. 1980s, the quiet king. The 1980s needed someone different. The sport was exhausted from Arnold's personality. It needed substance over style. Lee Haney was 24 when he won his first Mr. Olympia in 1984. Nobody expected him to hold it for 8 straight years. He won 1984, 1985, 1986, 1987, 1988, 1989, 1990, and 1991. 8 consecutive victories. He retired in 1991, still on top, at age 31. For nearly a decade, the question wasn't who will win. It was, who will take second to Lee Haney? But here's what made Haney different. He was quiet, soft-spoken, deeply religious. A family man who went home after contests. He didn't trash talk, didn't play mind games. His physique did all the talking. At 5 feet 11 inches and 245 to 250 pounds in contest shape, Haney brought mass without sacrificing aesthetics. Wide shoulders, full chest, back that spread like a cobra hood, arms over 20 inches, and a waist that stayed relatively tight. Haney's nickname was Totally Awesome. He represented the bridge between eras, bigger than Arnold but more aesthetic than the mass monsters coming in the 1990s. He proved you could grow without losing shape. His physique philosophy was mass with class. His training philosophy matched his personality, disciplined and sustainable. Haney coined the phrase stimulate, don't annihilate. He believed in training hard enough to trigger growth, but not destroying your body. Moderate volume, maybe 15 sets per body part. Train heavy but with perfect form. No ego lifting. He trained 4 days a week, chest and arms, legs, off, back and shoulders, off, repeat. Rest days were sacred. Haney emphasized functional strength, compound movements, squats, deadlifts, bench press, rows, then machines and cables for isolation. His T-bar rows were legendary. He'd load up weight that made the machine groan, then pull with strict form until his back looked like mountain range. His leg workouts were brutal. Squats, leg press, hack squats, then extensions and curls. The 1980s marked bodybuilding's commercial explosion. Magazines multiplied. Supplement companies grew. Haney handled this transition gracefully. He endorsed products he actually used, did seminars teaching Real principles, promoted fitness without hardcore gatekeeping. After retiring in 1991, he founded his own training company, eventually became chairman of the President's Council on Physical Fitness and Sports. He took bodybuilding mainstream at a government level. Why is Lee Haney the best bodybuilder of the 1980s? Because he proved dominance doesn't require drama. 8 straight Olympias, a record tied only by Ronnie Coleman. He brought mass without losing aesthetics. He trained smart, not stupid. He promoted stimulate, don't annihilate, when the sport was heading toward overtraining. He showed you could be a champion without being a villain. The 1980s belonged to the quiet king who let his physique speak louder than words. 1990s, the shadow falls. Then the sport went dark. Literally. Dorian Yates earned the nickname The Shadow because he disappeared between competitions. No guest posing. No magazine interviews. He'd vanish into Birmingham, England, and train in a concrete gym called the Dungeon. Then he'd reappear at the Olympia, looking like evolution had accelerated. In 1992, Yates entered the Mr. Olympia as a serious contender. Most expected Lee Haney's successor to come from America. Instead, a British guy nobody really knew walked on stage looking carved from granite. Yates won. People thought it was a fluke. Then 1993, 1994, 1995, 1996, 1997. 6 straight victories. By the time people stopped calling it luck, Yates had already retired as one of the most dominant champions in history. What made Yates different? Conditioning, not just low body fat. Everyone was lean, but grainy, striated conditioning that made his muscles look shrink-wrapped in cellophane. You could see individual muscle fibers. His back was his trademark. When Yates hit rear double biceps, his back looked like aerial photography of a mountain range. Thickness, detail, all at once. Yates stood about 5 feet 10 inches and weighed 255 to 265 pounds in contest shape. Not the biggest ever, but the densest, the hardest. Most bodybuilders could get big or get shredded. Yates showed up both, massive and peeled. It redefined what in shape meant. His training methodology was revolutionary. Yates used high-intensity training, 1 or 2 all-out sets per exercise taken beyond failure. No 20 sets per body part, just brutal focus intensity. A typical chest workout might be incline press, 1 warm-up set, then 1 set to failure and beyond, flat dumbbell press, 1 set to complete failure. Cable flies, 1 set, done. Total workout time, 45 minutes. Most pros train 2 hours. Yates believed training was about quality, not quantity. That 1 set done with absolute intensity stimulated more growth than 10 sets done half-heartedly. He'd load up a barbell for rows, then pull until his muscles screamed, until he physically couldn't move the weight. Then force reps, then fight the negative. 1 set, complete annihilation. The dungeon wasn't glamorous. Concrete walls, basic equipment, no mirrors. Yates would train early morning before most people were awake. Then go home, eat, rest. Training was work, serious work. Nobody saw him train. The mystique grew. He just showed up at contests looking better each time. But high intensity came with a cost. Torn bicep in 1994, still won. Torn tricep in 1997, still won but barely. After his 1997 victory, Yates retired at 35. 6 Olympias, unbeaten streak, smart enough to walk away. Yates also changed the judging. Before him, flow and lines mattered most. After him, conditioning became critical. Why is Dorian Yates the best bodybuilder of the 1990s? Because he shifted the entire paradigm. He proved mystery and intensity could beat charisma and volume. He brought conditioning to a level the sport had never seen. His back alone won contests. He trained with a philosophy that seemed crazy but produced undeniable results. The 1990s belonged to the shadow because when he stepped into the light, nobody else looked complete. 2000s, the king lifts the throne. The 2000s needed someone who could make extreme mass look approachable. Ronnie Coleman became that man. He walked into gyms yelling, "Yeah, buddy," and "lightweight baby," before squatting 800 pounds for reps. He deadlifted 800 pounds like a warm-up. He pressed 200-pound dumbbells overhead while laughing. His training videos didn't teach technique, they taught belief. Coleman won a consecutive Mr. Olympias from 1998 to 2005, tied Lee Haney's record. But Coleman's legacy isn't just the 8 titles. It's the 26 IFBB professional wins, the most in history. It's the way he combined freakish mass with surprising shape. At his peak, Coleman weighed nearly 300 pounds on stage. His off-season weight reportedly hit 330 to 340 pounds. Yet he still had a waist, still had proportion. His rear lat spread looked like he could fly. His quads had separations nobody had seen before. But Coleman wasn't just big, he was strong. Legitimately powerlifter level strong. He'd squat 800 pounds for reps, not one grinder rep. Multiple reps, controlled descent, explosive ascent. He'd deadlift 800 pounds for reps with mixed grip, no straps, no belt. His training philosophy was old school brutality. Heavy weight, high volume, full range of motion. A typical back workout, bent rows with 400-plus pounds, T-bar rows with plates stacked to the ceiling, weighted pull-ups, seated cable rows, dumbbell rows with 200-pound dumbbells, 30 to 40 sets total. 2 hours. Coleman trained 6 days a week, hit everything twice. He worked as a police officer for Arlington, Texas, while dominating bodybuilding. His work ethic wasn't just impressive, it was inhuman. His personality made the mass of Coleman was funny, genuine, accessible. His catchphrases became gym culture. Yeah, buddy, lightweight, ain't nothing but a peanut. Suddenly lifting 800 pounds felt possible because Ronnie made it look fun, but every throne has a price. Coleman's training destroyed his body. Herniated discs, hip replacements, spinal fusions, over a dozen surgeries. Now he moves with difficulty, often uses a wheelchair, yet he smiles through it, says he'd do it all again. Zero regrets. Why is Ronnie Coleman the best bodybuilder of the 2000s? Because he represented the peak, the apex, the absolute maximum of what bodybuilding could become. 8 Olympias tied for the record. 26 pro wins, still the record. Training footage that inspired millions. A personality that made extreme muscle accessible. He lifted weights that powerlifters respected. The 2000 belonged to the king because nobody has combined size, strength, shape, and heart quite like Ronnie Coleman. 2010s, the gifts reign. The 2010s demanded precision. The sport had pushed mass as far as it could go. Now it needed refinement. Phil Heath didn't just build muscle, he sculpted it in 3 dimensions. His nickname was a gift because his genetics seemed criminally unfair. 17-inch arms in high school, 30-inch quads within years of starting bodybuilding. But genetics only open doors. Obsession keeps them open. Heath won 7 consecutive Mr. Olympias from 2011 to 2017, tied with Arnold for second most titles. But numbers don't capture what made Heath special. It was the details, the separations, the 3-dimensional quality. His muscles didn't just look big, they looked like they had depth. His delts were perfectly round. His triceps had 3 distinct heads. His back had thickness, width, and detail. Every pose looked like an anatomy textbook came to life. He stood about 5 feet 9 inches and weighed 240 to 250 pounds on stage. Not the biggest competitor, but the most refined, the most polished. His proportions were nearly perfect. Wide shoulders, small waist, full chest, thick arms, legs that swept and separated. Everything flowed, everything balanced. He looked like what bodybuilding was supposed to be. His posing routine was surgical. He didn't just flex, he performed. Every transition was smooth, every angle calculated. He studied lighting, studied judges' perspectives. His front double biceps was iconic. His side chest showed round delts and thick pecs. His rear lat spread displayed width and detail. He practiced posing as much as he trained. Heath's training was methodical, 5 to 6 days a week, hitting body parts once or twice. He used moderate to heavy weight, perfect form, mind-muscle connection. He'd squeeze at the peak of every rep. No ego lifting, no sloppy form. His workouts lasted 90 minutes to 2 hours. Not marathon sessions, just focused work. Nutrition was where Heath obsessed. He tracked macros religiously, time-carved around training, manipulated sodium and water before contests. His diet was clean: chicken, fish, steak, egg whites, rice, oats, sweet potatoes, vegetables, 6 to 7 meals per day. Supplements were basic: whey protein, amino acids, creatine, multivitamins. Nothing exotic, just consistency. The 2010s were defined by Heath's rivalry with Kai Green. Their battles elevated bodybuilding. Press conferences got tense. Fans picked sides. Heath won every time. 2012, Heath. 2013, Heath. 2014, Heath. The rivalry brought mainstream attention. Then 2018 happened. Shawn Rhoden took the title. Heath's 7-year reign ended. In 2020, Big Ramy won at 290 to 300 pounds. Egyptian, first from his country to win Olympia. Rami's would symbolize a sport swinging back toward extreme mass. But the 2010s belong to Heath's precision, not Rami's mass. Why is Phil Heath the best bodybuilder of 2010 to 2020? Because he perfected the modern physique. 7 Olympias prove consistency. His three-dimensional muscle quality set new standards. His rivalry with Kai created drama that elevated the sport. He trained smart, posed perfectly, and presented bodybuilding as art and science combined. The 2010s belong to the gift because he was the most complete package since Arnold himself. 8 decades, 8 champions. From Grimek's undefeated strength in war-era gyms to Heath's sculpted dominance on million-dollar stages. Each man didn't just win titles. He carried bodybuilding forward into new territory. Grimek proved muscle could be art. Reeves made it global. Oliva showed genetics could rewrite limits. Arnold turned it into stardom. Haney brought quiet consistency. Yates pushed conditioning to extremes. Coleman combined mass and strength beyond belief. Heath refined it all into three-dimensional perfection. But here's the answer to the question from the beginning. The most complete bodybuilder wasn't from one decade. It was the evolution itself. Each champion stood on the shoulders of the one before. Each era learned from the previous. The iron never lies. The trophies don't fade. And the standards keep rising. Now you know who defined each era, who owned each decade, who changed the game forever. But there's still one story left untold. The bodybuilders who should have won, but never did. The nearly men. The second-place legends. The rivals who pushed champions to greatness, but never held the crown themselves. That's a story worth telling.